welcome to my channel. I am Crystal and this is Homemaking on the Homestead, and today I am going to be cooking up some really good food. It's winter, it's cold in most places. It's actually started getting a little colder here, so it's beginning to feel more like winter now here, but nonetheless, when the weather gets cold, sometimes it's really nice to just have some homemade from scratch comfort food. As you guys saw in the intro, I had a rotisserie chicken carcass that I was in the process of turning into chicken stock. We had eaten on that chicken for a couple, 2-3 days, and then I took the meat off and put that in the refrigerator and decided to turn the bones into chicken stock. So I'm going to be using that chicken stock to make a big pot of chicken noodle soup. Now, I say big, it's like big for 2 people. It's not big for 10 people like it was when I had 8 kids at home, but it is a pot of soup that has definitely, well, it fed us last night, and it's gonna feed us again tonight. And yeah, that turned out really good. And then the next thing I'm making to go with that is some garlic cheese biscuits. Now, this is a little bit of a different recipe. It's not your typical biscuit recipe. So you'll see that, but it's really, really delicious. And I have made these a lot. I used to make them all the time, and I just hadn't made them in quite a while, but they are really, really good, and I could already say they went great with the soup last night. And then I am making a big batch of chocolate chip cookies. I have some for us to enjoy. I'll put some in the freezer, and I will be sharing some as well. So that's what we're cooking up. So if you're in the mood for a little bit of cooking inspiration, something to motivate you to, get in the kitchen and cook up a good meal for your family, maybe this video will be it. I will have the recipes for the cookies and the biscuits below in the description box, but the soup has no recipe. And I'll be explaining that as I go along, how to make soup without a recipe, because it is easier than you think. In fact, it is so easy that unless you're just in need of some quick convenience at the moment, there is really no reason to use soup from a can. You can make your own soups, use up leftovers, and use up different vegetables you might have sitting in your refrigerator that need to be used up. I mean, soup is just like that catch-all for so much to help you clean out the fridge, eat a frugal meal that tastes delicious and can feed you, your husband, your family perfectly. All right, you guys, so let's get cooking. Once my chicken stock had done its thing, it was time to strain it out. Now, you can make chicken stock on the stove top. It just takes a little bit longer, or you can make it in the crock pot, which can take a couple days if you really want a nice, thick, flavorful broth. But once I had that done, it was actually the next day, I went ahead and got out all my vegetables, the chicken, my broth there, and some noodles, so I could get busy making my soup. I was also making the garlic cheese biscuits that I mentioned, and the chocolate chip cookies. So I had a busy afternoon ahead of me. Every pot of good soup, at least in my opinion, starts with onions. And so that is where I always begin, is by chopping up my onions, as well as several cloves of garlic. I think garlic also adds great flavor to any pot of soup. I also had 3 really big mushrooms, Costco-sized mushrooms that I chopped up that was going to be added as well. At that point, it was time to get started, and I put my soup pot on, added a little bit of avocado oil, you could use any oil that you like, and started sauteing up those vegetables. Once I had those cooked down nicely, it was time for me to add the peas and carrots that I had pulled out of the freezer. Again, you can use any vegetables that you want. You could use fresh carrots. You could use anything that you have available to you. I had pulled off some of the fat that was on the top of that chicken broth, and you can see how nicely gelled it got. And I added that to my soup. I put a little bit of seasonings in there, some salt, some Johnny's seasoning salt, and some Creole seasoning. Really, you can add any type of seasoning that is your favorite. And measure lightly, and then you can always go back and adjust the seasonings later. Before adding the chicken, I had let my soup come to a boil to cook up those peas and carrots, and then I added the chicken and about 2 or 3 handfuls of some egg noodles. Again, I've used various different types of pasta. It's, again, whatever you have on hand will work. And then it was time to get busy on those cookies. My mother-in-law shared this recipe with me years ago, and I have made it countless times. The recipe calls for half butter and half coconut oil. For this particular time, I used all coconut oil because I was going to be sharing some of these cookies with somebody that is dairy-free. So I just used all coconut oil. Again, I've done that countless times, and I actually kind of like it better. It makes the edges of the cookies more crisp while still leaving the center nice and soft. I had pre-measured out my flour, and I like to do that is to get as many things measured out ahead of time as possible. It's just a little bit easier to cook and not have to stop and measure everything. And I mixed all those up, added some chocolate chips and pecans because my husband loves pecans in his chocolate chip cookies. I'm not necessarily a big person that likes different nuts in my cookies, but because I don't eat them all and I know how much he likes it, I go ahead and add those pecans. After I got the cookies going, it was time to get those biscuits going, and I told you these were a little bit different. And yes, they used mayo, and they used the mayonnaise instead of any other kind of butter, and they're just unique and different in that way, and so I do like to make them every now and then. You make these by combining the milk, the mayonnaise, a little bit of sugar, and of course you've got salt and some baking powder, and mix them up with a mixer. Then I added the flour to that, and I really felt at the end I probably should have added just a little bit more flour. They seemed a little bit sticky. They turned out delicious, but also I decided last minute to add some garlic powder or granulated garlic. The recipe doesn't call for that in the muffin, but I thought they taste better with that. And then finally you add the cheese, and I just kind of used a spatula and folded all that cheese in to the batter. These biscuits are made in a muffin pan, and I used my little 12-cup silicone muffin pan. I sprayed it with some olive oil spray, or I should say avocado spray, and then spooned the batter in. And you can see it's kind of sticky. I don't know if more flour would have helped or if it would have ended up causing them to be too crumbly. Like I said, they tasted really good. I was about to stick them in the oven and realized I had forgotten the most important part. To some melted butter, you add in some more garlic, you mix that up, and then you brush the tops of them with that melted butter mixture, because this is what really makes these amazing. They just gives them such flavor. Now it was time to put them in the oven, and my soup was all done. The noodles had cooked nicely. I did end up adding some extra water just because we don't like our soups really thick, and that's just a personal preference. And there are those gorgeous, beautiful, delicious biscuits hot out of the oven. It was still kind of early in the afternoon, and so we were not quite ready to have dinner. I ended up just reheating everything when it was time, but I wanted to plate it up so that you could see the whole meal. And like I said, this dinner was delicious, and we thoroughly enjoyed it as usual. This is chicken noodle soup is something that I make fairly often. I also had in the refrigerator a salad that was left over from the night before, and there was still plenty for dinner that night, so I added salad on the side. It was a delicious homemade from scratch dinner. I really want to thank you guys for coming along with me today and cooking my dinner with me. I hope it gives you some inspiration for your own cooking, your own meals. I hope you all have an amazing, blessed day today and week ahead. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.